Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Society of New Haven. Happy day after Christmas, and happy Kwanzaa. I am Rich Stockton, a member of the Worship Committee. You can refer to me with the pronouns he and him. If you're joining us for the first time, we're so glad you chose to spend this time with us. As you can read in our order of service, we are a diverse, multi-generational faith community that inspires lives of compassion and generosity, nurtures spiritual growth, cultivates transformative connections, and creates a more just world. This is a congregation that believes Black lives matter, that every person has the right to affirm their own gender identity, that all people are inherently worthy. We acknowledge that our sanctuary sits on the land traditionally that of the Quinnipiac and other Native people. As a congregation, we seek to heal the wounds of the past and present in ongoing work of reconciliation. Unfortunately, because of increased COVID risk, we will not meet in person today, but only by live streaming. And for us in the service away from the podium, masks are still mandatory inside our building for everyone's safety. For newcomers, you can contact us by email at membership@usnh.org, or you can go to our website, usnh.org, to find out more about us.
The call to worship today is by Nikki Giovanni. It's called My First Memory of Librarians. This is my first memory. A big room with heavy wooden tables that sat on a creaky wooden floor. A line of green shades, banker's lights, down the center. Heavy oak chairs that were too low, or maybe I was simply too short, for me to sit in and read. So my first book was always big. In the foyer, up 4 steps, a semicircle desk presided. To the left side, the card catalog. On the right, newspapers draped over what looked like a quilt rack. Magazines face out from the wall. The welcoming smile of my librarian, the anticipation in my heart. All those books, another world, just waiting at my fingertips. One of the ways that Unitarian Universalists are connected across time and space is through the lighting of our chalice. The cup of community holds the fire of truth and commitment. So today we light our chalice to remind ourselves that even though we are not together in person, we are still always together in community.
Covenant lies at the center of how Unitarian Universalists gather in community. We are united not by a particular set of beliefs, but by the promises we make about how we will be together, how we will treat each other, and how we will seek to mend relationships when we fall short of our aspirations. Each week we recite together a brief version of our covenant. I encourage you to read the full covenant on our website. And while the following words express our intentions in writing, our true covenant lives and breathes in our actions. Please join me now in reciting these words in your order of service. We covenant together to create and nurture a culture of respect and kindness, and to engage in the spiritual and everyday practice of loving more generously. To this end, we will strive to be open, value differences, listen deeply, use kind language, speak our truths, work with conflict, and seek humor and joy.
I invite you to, if you have a hymnal at home, it's number 346, or if you have the order of service there, you have the words in front of you, though the fourth verse will be slightly different. I'm sure you'll catch on. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come read a book with me. Come read a book with me. Come read a book with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
I invite you now to join me in holding in our hearts the joy and sorrow of those in our community, closing your eyes and going inward if you are comfortable doing so. Some of our joys shine more brightly as others reflect our delight, and some of our burdens are made lighter as others help us carry them. We'd like to remember Archbishop Desmond Tutu and his life as he passed away just recently. I also would like to remember all those who may be alone at this holiday, all those who might be in the hospital. We have them all in our minds and thoughts. And for all the joys and sorrows, both large and small, both spoken and unspoken, especially at this holiday season, we bear witness and we give thanks for this community of care. Amen.
I invite you to continue in that spirit of meditation, prayer, or contemplation of ultimate things. Begin the meditation with a poem by Dylan Thomas called Notes on the Art of Poetry. I could never have dreamt that there were such goings-on in the world between the covers of books. Such sandstorms and ice blasts of words, such staggering peace, such enormous laughter, such and so many blinding bright lights, splashing all over the pages in a million bits and pieces, all of which were words, 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 and each of which were alive forever in its own delight and glory and oddity and light. What's one book whose world captivated you? What was it that made it so special? It doesn't have to be a book of fantasy or science fiction, though it could be. The world might take you to another time or place, where it might open into an unfamiliar life. Or perhaps it captured something familiar in such a powerful way that you experience things differently now. Let's take a couple of minutes to savor this compelling world that you discovered through a book.
We know that our financial contributions to this congregation come from sacrifice and hard work. We are so grateful for them and commit together to ensure the funds we gather collectively do a greater good for ourselves and our world than they could have done alone. May there be an offering to sustain and grow the life and mission of this congregation. On this Christmas weekend, may we give in love and in hope. You can go to our website, usnh.org, online services, donation plate, or mail to our address, 700 Hartford Turnpike in Hampden, Connecticut, 06517. Please be as generous as you are able. Your contributions are gratefully received. Today's reading is from Naomi Shahib Nye. She is holding the book close to her body, carrying it home on the cracked sidewalk, down the tangled hill. If a dog runs at her again, she will use the book as a shield. She looked hard among the long lines of books to find this one. When they start talking about money and when the day contains such long and hot places, she will go inside. An orange bed is waiting. Story without corners. She will have two families. They will eat at different hours. She's carrying a book past the fire station and the 5 and 10. What this town has not given her, the book will provide. A sheep, a wilderness of new solutions. The book has already lived through its troubles. The book has a calm cover, a straight spine. When the step returns to itself as the best place for sitting, and the old men up and down the street are latching their clippers, she will not be alone. She will have a book to open, and open, and open. Her life starts here.
We Unitarian Universalists love our books. Ours is a living tradition in which revelation is not sealed, which means we'll never run out of things to learn about and find wonder in. Isn't that terrific? And what better time than Yuletide, when cold nights are long, to stay inside and read. With winter's darkness as a backdrop for imagination, and the approaching new year as a blank canvas of possibility, we have a perfect opportunity to dream and move into the unknown, the same way we do with books. For me, the parallels are irresistible. This is why I love the Icelandic tradition of giving each other books on Christmas Eve and then reading for the rest of the night. As Catherine Martinko put it, this custom is so deeply ingrained in the Icelandic culture that it is the reason for the Jólabókaflóð, or Christmas book flood, when the majority of books in Iceland are sold between September and December in preparation for Christmas giving. The small Nordic island, with a population of only 329,000 people, is extraordinarily literary. They love to read and write. According to Rosie Goldsmith of the BBC, the country has more writers, more books published, and more books read per head than anywhere else in the world. When I imagine myself in that Christmas Eve scene, a book in one hand, a mug of hot chocolate in the other, perhaps snow falling outside, I find it magical. And by the way, just add a fireplace and a cat curled up next to me, and you've pretty much described my version of heaven. And I picture loved ones nearby, silently immersed in their own books, no words necessary except the ones in front of our eyes. Reading involves far more than just reading. There are rituals to perform before I even get to the table of contents. Finding a comfortable place to sit, making sure there's enough light, examining the front cover, reading the summary of the book and the author's bio on the dust jacket or back cover, anticipating what might be in store for me as I enter this new world. The feel of paper under my fingertips, the forms of the particular font in which it's printed. With a new book, the distinct crack of the binding opening for the first time. Already, the reading experience has begun. For those of you who prefer ebooks, you may not have as many tactile moments as with a printed book, but the anticipation of the story and the experience of entering a portal remain just as powerful. Soon enough, the story pulls me in, whatever the genre. After all, good nonfiction employs engaging storytelling as much as any novel. And then I'm off, diving headfirst into the world of words and the images they conjure inside my brain. I've been an avid reader for as long as I can remember. I was always the person who couldn't wait for the semester to end so that I could read for fun. For most of my life, I've carried a book around with me because I never knew when I might have to wait for a bus to arrive or an appointment to start, or when I might find myself at a cafe with an unexpectedly open hour. Reading topped my list of hobbies. After a concussion a few years ago, I had to rest my brain as much as possible, which meant no screens or books. This is surprisingly difficult. But even more surprising was how long it took me to get back into the habit of reading. Given that books had always been friends, companions, safety nets, at times the very air in my lungs, it was unsettling that they weren't calling to me in the same way. Thank goodness for audiobooks, which gave me another means of encountering new worlds. Now, the majority of human history has involved listening to stories, so I was in good company. talented voice actors bring an added dimension to the words on the page. I especially love listening to authors like Neil Gaiman read their own work, which gives me a glimpse into how they understand it. Not that their interpretation is the only one, but it was the first one. And thank goodness as well for the libraries that allowed me to borrow those audiobooks. 2 of our readings today extolled the virtues of libraries, especially for young readers. I remember once when I was a kid, as my mom and I headed into one of the branches in town, I asked about an inscription over the front door that had puzzled me for ages. It read, "Free Public Library," which seemed remarkably redundant coming from people who were all about language. She told me, though, that not all libraries used to be free. People had to pay to read books. And that blew my mind. A library that wasn't free? What? It didn't compute. I literally had trouble imagining it, which I think speaks well of how far libraries had come in the common imagination. I was always a fan of the library, but that day I understood their importance to democracy as well, and I've been a huge champion of them ever since. Libraries and books are the embodiment of possibility, which is why they aren't popular with authoritarians. If people have access to books that teach them that U.S. history includes more than war and rich white men, or that queer people exist, or that women are human beings, or that people with disabilities deserve access rather than pity, or that science and technology aren't morally neutral, well, then they might just start questioning the actions of those authoritarians. We're seeing this play out in Texas, where the legislature recently passed legislation that effectively bans books that teach children any analysis of race. Even something as simple as a story about a 7th grader finding his way in a prestigious school where he's one of the few students of color. Words matter. I'm reminded of our Unitarian ancestor, Michael Servetus, a 16th century Spanish polymath who rejected the idea of the Trinity as a concept based on Greek philosophy rather than the Bible. He was burned at the stake for heresy in 1553 atop a pyre of his own books. His last words were, "Jesus, Son of the eternal God, have mercy on me." Ironically, if he'd been willing to move one word and call Jesus the eternal Son of God, he never would have been condemned. But words do matter. Books matter. The kind of imagination they encourage needs the kind of exercise that books provide. In the last stanza of his poem, "If Librarians Were Honest," Joseph Mills writes, "If librarians were honest, they would say, 'No one spends time here without being changed. Maybe you should go home while you still can.'" But those of us who love books aren't going anywhere, because books are home. There are thousands of homes, populated with people just like us and people nothing like us. They show humans in all our complexity, sometimes heroes, sometimes villains, achingly vulnerable and frustratingly aloof, courageous truth-tellers and insidious liars, subject to every emotion under the sun. At their best, books can be tools of liberation on almost every level, which is why setting aside time to read on Christmas Eve, a holiday that celebrates the embodiment of a child who would subvert empire, is quite fitting indeed. Amen, and blessed be. Got to put the mask back on to sing. Again, I invite you, if you have a hymnal, to join me in singing number 158, Praise the Source of Faith and Learning. Praise the source of faith and learning that has sparked and stoked the mind with a passion for discerning how the world has been designed. Let the sense of wonder flowing from the wonders we survey keep our faith forever growing and renew our need to pray. Source of wisdom, we acknowledge that our science and our art and the breadth of human knowledge only partial truth impart. Far beyond our calculation lies a depth we cannot sound, where the purpose for creation and the pulse of life are found. May our faith redeem the blunder of believing that our thought has displaced the groundswell wonder which the ancient prophets taught. May our learning curb the error which unthinking faith can breed, lest we justify some terror with an antiquated creed. Praise for minds to probe the heavens, praise for strength to breathe the air, praise for all that beauty leavens, praise for silence, music, prayer, praise for justice and compassion, and for strangers, neighbors, friends, praise for hearts and lips to fashion, praise for love that never ends.
Please join me in reciting the words in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Friends, books are magical things. They impart knowledge, they impart emotion, they impart experience, they impart humanity. Let us never take them for granted as the gifts that they are. Let us never take for granted the authors, the poets, the storytellers who conjure this magic from within themselves and in partnership with their muse. Let us value what we can learn, what we can reflect upon in our own love of books. May it ever be so. So go in peace, with courage and with kindness, and be a blessing to this broken and beautiful world. Amen.